All right, welcome back, Free Radicals. My name is Dave, and I'm the Radical Independent. Thanks for tuning in to this platform and for continued support and just subscribing at this stage, I think is the only thing I can hope for. And if you're new, thank you for being new. I'm kind of a third-party guy, as you probably know at this stage. I'm looking at the political system as absolute carnage when your two picks are going to be Biden versus Trump. I really don't need to go into any detail. If you're a rank partisan, you have your reasons as to why you support Joe Biden because you don't like Trump and Trump's mean and evil and so forth. And you don't like his tweets and he's orange and he's bad. I've come to the conclusion that this isn't enough anymore to just oppose somebody on superficial things. Now, you can find some real interesting things to oppose Donald Trump on, but you don't replace him with someone who's going to make the situation more dire. And he will. He will certainly make things far more worse than even Trump is doing. I can almost guarantee it. At the very best that you can expect is that Joe Biden will keep things the same, but he won't be Donald Trump. And then your little pet peeve cultural issues that you supposedly think are the end of the world, if those issues aren't supported by the person in the White House, and those issues typically don't affect average Americans. Most of those issues are decided by your local and state governments anyway. If you think those things are really, truly that important to you, you can't let go of them, then okay, vote for the symbolic lesser of two lessers, okay? Because that's what you're looking at here. I had a lot of hopes that Jesse Ventura was going to run for president. I am hearing that he is no longer interested in running for president, and probably because of a couple of issues I cited here on this particular channel. First of which is people will go after him like no candidate in human history. The Russian narrative thing will go to a new level where I think these politicians and our national security apparatus would be willing to start a Cold War, like literally start a Cold War, like pretend that they're helping so much in this regard by propping up Ventura as the candidate. They're working overtime to do this, and thus we need to stop them. We need to put an end to it and throw out false flags left and right. People eat it up because they don't know. They still think that the Syrians used chemical weapons on their own people. They haven't seen any of the reports, and then there have been numerous reports now which debunk that whole narrative, that stuff that went against Tulsi Gabbard in her campaign, and anyone else who spoke out and said, no, this didn't happen. The United States is causing all of the turmoil in Syria, and nobody is willing really to address that. Ventura would have, but he would have been outed as a foreign agent to, again, an extent that we can't even imagine. So just on that alone, look, a lot of the Green Party folks who are invested in the party, who've been there, they chastised me a bit because I said I think the two major players or the two leading candidates should step aside to allow Jesse to get into the the front runner and then to be the nominee. And that wouldn't be just decided by fiat. That would be decided by the delegates that were chosen. And it would be decided by both Dario Hunter and Howie Hawkins themselves. So it wouldn't be just like the same as what the DNC does behind the scenes. It wouldn't be that way. It would be for the good of the party by people who believe that Ventura could bring a whole bunch of new and fresh, blood into the party, which I don't think is a bad thing. Now, I get it, though. If you've been campaigning since not this year, but last year, like May of last year, and you announced your candidacy, I understand that, hey, here comes an interloper who's here to just subvert what we've been doing. He should have gotten involved back then. I mean, if Ventura had jumped in last spring, he would be the nominee. So he kind of wasn't willing to do some of the heavy lifting. Now, I don't have 100% certainty that he's not going to run, but there have been postings on Twitter from people kind of in high places within the structure of things. And I don't like it, obviously, because I think they may have just been subverting the will of people who were close to the campaign, testing the waters to see how much interest there is. But it's hard for me to argue with people who are telling me, look, these other two candidates, and again, we're talking about Howie Hawkins and Dario Hunter. They've put in the miles, they've done the work, and now you're just going to pull out, the rug out from under them. I'm hoping again to talk to Howie Hawkins and maybe even Dario Hunter again. I've done interviews with them, by the way. For all of you folks who think Howie Hawkins is the worst candidate and so forth when it comes to free speech, Julian Assange, I mean, he gave clean, clear, direct answers. There was no muddling. There was no mere repeating. Okay, there was just, here's the question, here's the answer. And I'd like to have him on again and ask these questions again. And then I might say something like, so Howie, why is it that people perceive you as this type of person? Okay. I'm willing to keep looking at Howie Hawkins because he's the guy, he'd be the only guy out there for bailing out folks with predatory lending debt that they didn't bargain for when they decided to take out a college loan because they thought they were going to have a career that would erase that quickly. The Greens, I mean, at least the Howie Hawkins, Dario Hunter Green Party platform, this was the platform that would have put us in the best position to fight this coronavirus instead of fighting all of these endless wars in other countries. And by the way, again, still waiting for Tulsi Gabbard to tell us which missions we're going on, which are good missions. I'd like to know which ones, and I'm dead serious about that. That was an atrocious answer and a horrible response that she gave on the Jimmy Dore show after running an entire campaign saying end regime change wars. Okay, I don't know. I don't know where, see, for me, I'm not only against the regime change war, I'm against the useless, endless war for any particular reason, supposedly to keep Americans safe. But imagine if we had that infrastructure to keep Americans safe from COVID-19 right now, instead of something that's happening thousands of miles away in a foreign country. And all of the sort of healthcare associated costs for all of these men and women who come back to the States and who are going to need, lots of serious healthcare in perpetuity. So I again, the reason I go off on that tangent is because I'm tired of people telling me there's a good war over here and there's a bad war and we've got to choose. I like the Green Party, which says cut the military budget drastically, bring the troops home. Dario Hunter has called for a Department of Peace. I like that idea. I really do. I know for some that sounds glib or it sounds pie in the sky or Dove's extreme, however you want to look at it. It would be a pleasant thing to fight for Department of Peace instead of a Department of Defense, which is really a Department of War. So, is it pie in the sky? Maybe it is. I don't know. But even if you were able to, I think Howie Hawkins wants to do 50%, 75% cuts in the military budget. That would be historic. And he sounds like FDR to me for the modern age. So everybody thinks it's so radical. It's not. Would I like Jesse Ventura? Yes, I would prefer Jesse Ventura. So if Jesse Ventura is out there and he's still running or he's planning on running, I hope, he decides to do it, but it doesn't appear that he's going to. So for everybody who is concerned about issues over personalities, because issues are more important in the long run, I understand that you don't get the power and you don't get decision making unless you actually get elected, and I understand your rationale. But if those things can't happen, then you need to find your serious candidate, and you might like Justin Amash. I think he might run in the Libertarian Party. It looks like he's going to do it. You might like him. He's good on some stuff. I would say consider it. But I would say also we're in the danger of splitting the rest of us up where we can't be effective. And if you supported Tulsi or Bernie, both of them were economic populists, all right? Justin Amash is not. Howie Hawkins is. Dario Hunter is. Jesse Ventura, I think, is as well. So I just want to point this out that if it's not Jesse, we still need a way to build a movement and get it to 5%, get it to 10%, get a serious three-way election going, or four-way if the Libertarians have a candidate who's pulling votes, and start to tear down this two-party nonsense, which is hell-bent on the status quo. You're replacing Trump with a guy who's got dementia. And that's not good enough for me. And it shouldn't be good enough for anybody. And by the way, if you're banking on all these policies that supposedly Biden's going to adopt from Bernie and so forth, you're living in a fantasy world. There's no way. There's just no way. You need a way around the lobbyists and all of those things. What you need is the Bernie platform on steroids with no apologies and no acquiescing. And there are a lot of people running for Congress who you can look into who are Democrats, who are running the Democratic Party, who do have a chance to shake up the Democratic Party at the grassroots level. Keep in mind, though, what's happened to these squad members since they've gotten to Washington, D.C. Their message has gotten softer and softer. And, you know, their willingness to go along to see Biden get elected and to compromise just probably all of their principles in the process is actually rather breathtaking to see. When you're thinking, oh, I've got a solid grassroots working class person who represents me in my district. Then they go to DC and they tell us, oh, well, we've got to play the game. If we want anything, we got to play it. And I'm not playing that game anymore. Hence the Green Party. Hence, if you're going to go Democrat, make sure you're going Bernie, old school Democrat who actually wants to follow through on these policies, and not somebody who's willing to just acquiesce to the Hillary Clinton wing of the party, because that's still the wing that controls everything. John Podesta. It's a nightmare for somebody who wants real reform, because they're close. I saw this woman from, I think it was Washington State. She's running for Congress. I think it's Washington State. And she did this great analogy, whereas, you know, her views were like a cabbage, and then the conservative views were like a carrot, and then the neoliberal views were like a wet carrot stripped noodle. And she's like, well, if you're going to pick between the real carrot and the noodle carrot, you're going to pick the carrot because that's the real thing. And that just shows you give somebody a cabbage, they're going to look at it and go, this is better. This is different. You know, maybe you like carrots better than cabbage, but the analogy holds. And I immediately followed her. She's running. I wish I could remember her name, but she's spot on correct about all those things. You know, where I live in the state of Florida, it's just embarrassing because we have bad choices and then worse choices. All right. That's what we got. And the Democrats are all trying to be Republican light. Oh, I'm not, you know. And again, it's the same tribal nonsense. It's woman's right to choose, and they're going to take it away, and we're going to stop them. And meanwhile, the house is burning, you know. COVID-19 is raging. People are risking their lives going to work. And yet, we're still having the same tribal warfare. And I just think it's ridiculous. And we need to put down the tribal nonsense and go for these large issues and support candidates, whether they be green or the DSA people who are out there who are legitimate and they're not going to fold up like Bernie. Because that's the thing. Now they're out there all alone. They had Bernie as kind of like their figurehead. Now someone else has got to rise up with the same belief system and show the way and mean it. And once they get to DC, are they going to acquiesce? So again, is it easier to invade an existing party like the Democrats and try to reform it? I used to think so. Maybe at the local level you can start doing it, whether it's state rep or it's congressional representative, maybe, possibly senator, U.S. senator. It's a tough go. Primary somebody. You know, I know time is not of the essence, or is of the essence, but time is running out to do that right now. But in the future, this is the, and by the way, again, forget about the horse race. The horse race is over. Stop talking about what could have been, what should have been, and move on. You know, not to use that stupid neoliberal resistance website, moveon.org, but you got to move on. You've got to say to yourself, well, this isn't working. It's time for me to go around this. And I've been saying this since, last spring. So anyway, that's my video. If Jesse does not run, then you know what? Really scour and look into Howie Hawkins and Dario Hunter. The primary continues. I voted in Florida. The Green Party does ranked choice voting. I voted for the first time online as a Green Party candidate. And I have to say, it's a pretty cool way of doing it. Early voting is right now, and exercise your right to vote. All right, I'm done, and thanks for watching. I'll see you soon.